I never imagined that something so twisted could happen within my own family. It's the kind of thing you hear about in the news or read in a gossip magazine, and you think to yourself, that would never happen to me. But that's exactly what happened. My sister, someone I had trusted and grown up with, pretended to be me in our family group chat for weeks, and in doing so, stole my fiancé. It's still hard to believe that all of this started with something as innocent as a text. At first, I didn't even realize anything was wrong. It seemed normal. We'd been in the middle of wedding planning for months. The excitement of finding a venue, picking a date, choosing a dress, it had all been so overwhelming, and my fiancé Mark and I were trying to juggle everything. I had my family group chat for updates, and Mark had his own family chat. It wasn't unusual for me to send texts to my family, let them know how things were going, ask for their opinions, and keep everyone in the loop. But the trouble started when I began noticing odd messages from Mark. At first, they were small things, little comments that seemed like they were meant to be jokes or playful exchanges. I chalked it up to pre-wedding jitters, but when I looked closer, I began to see a pattern. He was responding to things I hadn't said, making inside jokes that didn't feel right, commenting on things I hadn't mentioned. I remember one evening, about a week before the engagement party we were hosting for both our families, I checked the group chat while I was sitting in my living room. I hadn't been active for a few hours because I'd been busy at work, but when I saw the new messages, I did a double take. Mark had just texted my sister Emily. Nothing was odd about the message itself. It was just a casual, haha, that's so funny. You know me too well, in response to something Emily had shared about a wedding idea. But then I realized something. I hadn't shared anything with Emily about that idea. In fact, I hadn't told anyone else except for Mark. Confused, I quickly scrolled through the previous messages to see what had been said. To my shock, the conversation wasn't how I remembered it. There were long stretches of messages where I hadn't been involved. My sister was responding to Mark's texts as though they had been chatting privately, and I had never seen the conversation unfold like this. Something inside me clicked. A chill ran down my spine as I realized, wait a second, this isn't right. For weeks I had been communicating through the family group chat, but somehow Mark was sending messages to Emily that were full of detail, things that only I had said to him. I hadn't shared anything like that with her, not even in passing. How could she have known all these personal things about us? I needed to confront this, so I texted Emily directly. Hey Em, something feels off. I noticed you and Mark have been having long convos in the group chat, and it's like he's responding to things I never said. Are you two talking outside the chat? I don't want to jump to conclusions, but something's up. She replied quickly, a little too quickly in hindsight. Of course not. I don't know what you're talking about. He's been great at helping with some wedding stuff, and I just thought I'd share a few ideas with him. You know how much he loves being involved. I didn't trust her response, but I left it alone, at least for now. The next day, I decided to go straight to Mark. I'd had enough of these little weird conversations, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was going on. I confronted him that night, after dinner, just the two of us. Mark, I need to ask you something. I've been looking at the group chat, and I noticed that some of your messages to Emily are way too familiar. It's like you two are having private conversations that I didn't know about. What's going on? He froze. For a split second, there was a flicker of panic in his eyes. But then he masked it with a smile. What do you mean, babe? We're just talking about wedding stuff. I know you're busy, and I was just trying to help. Emily and I are just getting along better now, but there was something in his voice, something in the way he answered, that didn't sit right with me. I pushed further. Mark, I'm serious. I've seen the messages. They don't add up. You're telling her things I've only shared with you. That's not just helping with the wedding. What's really going on? He looked away, rubbing his face. I'm sorry, Emma. I didn't want to hurt you. It wasn't supposed to go this far. But I was stunned, my heart thudding in my chest as the words sank in. What do you mean? What wasn't supposed to go this far? That's not how I meant for it to happen, he said quietly, avoiding my gaze. I didn't plan on falling for Emily, but the more we talked, the more I don't know. She gets me, Emma. You've been so focused on the wedding, on everything else, and I just felt alone. I didn't mean to betray you, but we started getting closer, and it just happened. The room felt like it was spinning. Betrayal. My own sister, my fiancé. It felt like I was suffocating in my own home. The walls around me were closing in as I tried to process what he was saying. No, I whispered, the words barely escaping my lips. No, you didn't just fall for her. You've been lying to me, to both of us. You've been having an affair with her while I've been planning our wedding. My wedding? How long has this been going on? I swear, it didn't start like that. He hesitated. It just happened over time. I never wanted to hurt you, Emma. I really didn't. But Emily and it was inevitable. I care about her. I trusted you, I said, my voice breaking, tears beginning to fall. You're supposed to be the person I trust the most, Mark. You're supposed to be my partner, my equal. But now I see that you've been having an affair with my sister behind my back, using the wedding to cover it up. How could you do this to me? He didn't have an answer because there was no answer. There was no excuse. I never meant for this to happen, Emma, he said, his voice filled with regret. But I can't change it now. I know I've destroyed everything. I stood up from the couch, feeling numb, a hollow feeling sinking into my chest. You didn't just destroy our relationship, Mark. You destroyed the trust that held everything together. I don't even know who you are anymore. I walked out of the room, my mind spinning. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to break everything in sight, but I couldn't. I just couldn't. The pain of what he'd done, the weight of the betrayal, felt like it was suffocating me. How had I missed the signs? How had I been so blind to what was going on under my nose? And then, the realization hit me even harder than before. Emily knew about everything. She had been a part of this from the very beginning. She had been pretending to be me in the family group chat, texting Mark, having private conversations, sharing secrets, all while smiling to my face and acting like everything was fine. She knew about the wedding plans, my excitement, my stress, and still, she played her part in stealing something that was supposed to be mine. I felt betrayed by both of them, by the man I was supposed to marry, and by the sister I had always trusted. My mind raced with questions, each one more painful than the last. How long had this been going on? How had I missed it? Was it something that had started long before we ever got engaged, or was it something that had developed after we'd committed to each other? Was Emily always this manipulative, or had she changed? I didn't have answers, not yet, but I knew one thing. I couldn't marry him. There was no way I could walk down the aisle and look at him the same way. The man I loved had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and the woman I called my sister had done the same. As I sat alone in my room that night, I felt like the world had caved in on me. The future I had imagined with Mark was gone. The dreams I had built with him were gone. And my relationship with Emily, that too was gone. There was no coming back from this. I didn't know what the next steps were. I didn't know if I'd ever be able to forgive either of them. But one thing was for sure. This was the beginning of something I hadn't prepared for. Something that would change me forever. The days following the confrontation felt like I was living in some sort of nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. I spent the first few days in a fog of disbelief, like the world was moving in fast forward around me and I was stuck in slow motion. I couldn't look at Mark without feeling the sting of betrayal, and I couldn't look at Emily without imagining the deceitful conversations she'd had behind my back, pretending to be me while pretending to love me like a sister. It was all so hard to digest. How had I not seen this coming? There had to have been signs. I thought about everything in our relationship, the small moments that I thought were trivial, the times I felt ignored, the times I felt like something was missing. I thought about how Emily had always been a little too involved in my personal life, a little too invested in my relationship with Mark, but I never took those feelings seriously. I always assumed she just cared. But now, it all made sense, and the truth was both painful and suffocating. She had been the one pulling the strings, pretending to be me, gaining Mark's affection while I was busy planning our future together. When I looked back, the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. They had been laughing at me. They had used my trust, my love, my family, and turned it into a twisted game where I was the fool and they were the winners. It made my stomach turn. I couldn't escape the constant gnawing pain. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make them feel the way I felt. The anger inside me was overwhelming, and I had nowhere to channel it. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's face, and every time I thought of Emily, I felt the sting of betrayal all over again. The worst part? The guilt. I felt guilty for loving someone who could hurt me this way. I felt guilty for trusting a sister who had crossed the most sacred line. I couldn't stay in the house anymore. I couldn't be around Mark, even though he kept texting me, apologizing over and over again. I had blocked him, but his messages kept coming in through every possible means. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Please, just talk to me. I couldn't even bring myself to read them. How could I listen to someone who had been so deceitful? How could I ever look at him the same way again? I couldn't. I stayed with my best friend Lisa for a while. She let me crash at her place, gave me space to think and process everything. I needed that. I needed time to breathe, to figure out who I was without Mark, without the idea of marriage, without a future that I had spent years imagining. Lisa didn't ask too many questions. She just gave me the space I needed, knowing that I couldn't talk about it yet. She had been there through everything, and I knew she understood. The first few days at Lisa's were a blur. I could barely eat. I couldn't sleep. Every time I tried to close my eyes, my mind would race, playing the scenes over and over again. The confrontation with Mark, the discovery of his betrayal, the cold realization that Emily was not the person I thought she was. The emotional pain was so intense it physically hurt. After the third day, I finally decided that I couldn't hide anymore. I couldn't avoid my parents forever. I needed to face them. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I had to. They had been calling me, texting me, asking when I was coming by to talk. They had no idea what had really happened. To them, I was still their daughter, and they still saw Mark as the good guy. But I couldn't keep living in this void. I had to let them know what had happened, no matter how painful it was. The thought of confronting my parents filled me with dread. I had no idea how they were going to react. Would they support me? Or would they side with Mark? I didn't know if I could handle losing them too, but I couldn't keep living this lie. I had to tell them the truth. The night before, I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head. How could this have happened? How could they both betray me like this? And then I thought about my sister, Emily. I had never imagined that she would be capable of something like this. It wasn't just a matter of crossing a line, it was the whole dynamic of our relationship that had been shattered. She had pretended to be me for weeks. She had been lying to everyone, including our family, and the most painful part, I hadn't even seen it coming. She had been playing me for months. The next day, I called my parents. My heart was pounding as I dialed their number. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I knew I had to say something. I couldn't keep avoiding them forever. The silence between us was deafening, and I could feel the strain, the tension as I waited for them to pick up. Emma. My mom's voice came through the phone, tentative, like she wasn't sure what kind of conversation we were about to have. We've been trying to get a hold of you. We're really worried. Is everything okay? I took a deep breath. No, Mom, everything's not okay. We need to talk. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. My mom's voice trembled when she responded. What's going on, sweetheart? Mom, Dad, I started, feeling the weight of the words I was about to say. I found out something about Mark and Emily. They've been having an affair. I could hear my mom gasp. My dad was quiet, and I could almost feel the shock hit them both. What do you mean? My mom asked, her voice rising in disbelief. What are you talking about? They've been texting each other, behind my back. Emily was pretending to be me in our family group chat for weeks, talking to Mark, sharing personal things that only I knew. I don't know how long it's been going on, but it's been more than just an emotional affair. They've been lying to me, and to you. My heart raced as I spoke, the anger rising in me again. The realization that my own family had been involved in this twisted web of lies was too much to bear. How had they not seen it? How had they been so blind to what was happening? There was silence on the other end. My parents didn't know what to say. I don't even know how to deal with this, Mom. I continued. Emily has betrayed me in the worst way possible. And Mark, the person I was going to marry, the one I trusted more than anyone else, has done the same thing. And you both had no idea. You had no idea what was really going on behind closed doors. Emma, we didn't know, my mom said, her voice shaking. We had no idea. We thought everything was fine. We thought Mark was just helping with the wedding. We didn't know. We didn't know it was this bad. How could you not know? I said, my voice cracking. How could you not see it? How could you not see what was happening right in front of you? I'm sorry, sweetheart, my dad's voice came through, filled with regret. We didn't know. We didn't realize what was going on. If we had, we would have done something about it. But we're here now. We're here for you. But their words didn't comfort me. Not this time. Not after everything that had happened. Mom, Dad, I said, my voice firm now. I don't know what comes next. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to deal with this betrayal. I need space. I need time. And that was the hardest part. I didn't know how to process everything. I didn't know if I would ever get over the pain, the anger, the heartbreak. How do you get over a betrayal like this? How do you move forward when the people you trusted the most have hurt you in the deepest possible way? I didn't know. All I knew was that I couldn't stay here. Not with Mark, not with Emily, not anymore. So I packed up my things and left. I needed to be somewhere I could think, somewhere I could breathe. The future of my relationship, my family, and my life were all up in the air, and I had no idea how things would turn out. But I couldn't stay in that house, in that life anymore. I didn't know what was next, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let this define me. I would rebuild. I would take this pain and turn it into something stronger. And for the first time in a long time, I knew I had to do it on my own.